Cowboy Prince, it's kind of like Cinderella. So the story that you know about Cinderella is kind of the same, but it's with different people, and it's in a different setting. It's actually on a ranch. What's a ranch?
I don't know.
What is a ranch?
It's like somewhere it's somewhere where like horses live.
Yeah, it is. It's kind of like, is that what you're thinking? So they have horses, maybe. Cows have cattle. You ever see any cows?
Yeah.
My dad. What's a cow say?
Moo.
Okay, so you got the cows. You got it all lined out. All right, so this is Bubba the Cowboy Prince. And I kind of get in my reading voice with this, so I like this book. All right. And I'll show you pictures too as I read. So don't be afraid that you're not going to get to see. Once there was a strapping young feller named Bubba who lived on a ranch with his wicked stepdaddy and his hateful and lazy stepbrothers Dwayne and Milton. Bubba's stepdaddy spoiled Dwayne and Milton to no end, but Bubba worked from sun up to sundown doing the chores of 3 ranch hands. Bubba never complained though. He loved ranching.
Oh, he's
riding that horse. He is. He loves ranching. That's Bubba. Well, Dwayne and Milton spent their days sitting on horseback, bossing Bubba around. Get them doggies along there, Bubba, ordered Dwayne. Yeah, and watch out for them cow patties, added Milton. You know how Daddy hates for you to track up the house.
He's like...
You see them sitting on those horsebacks, just laid back. They're not doing any work, are they?
No.
No.
They're just telling them something to be careful.
Now, let me just tell you this. Look here. Now, Miss Lurleen, who lived down the road a piece, was the prettiest and richest gal in the county. She owned the biggest spread west of the Brazos, and she loved ranching too. But it was lonesome work, and after a while, she decided it was time for some companionship. I aim to find myself a feller, she said, one who loves ranching as much as I do, and it wouldn't hurt if he was as cute as a cow's ear either. Miss Lurleen decided to throw a ball. She sent invitations to all the ranchers in Texas. You see Miss Lurleen?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
She's
Yeah. Soon, the day of the ball arrived. Milton and Dwayne spent all day getting gussied up in their finest duds. Bubba ran himself ragged, waiting on them. Bubba, shouted Dwayne, fetch my bolo tie. Bubba, shouted Milton, get my boots polished. Bubba, shouted his wicked stepdaddy, brush them horses and wash that wagon.
They're being mean to him.
Bubba's working hard, isn't he?
Yeah, I see the horse too.
Well,
him to get a real job.
Maybe. All right, so by the time Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy were ready to go, Bubba was exhausted. Still, as they climbed into the wagon, Bubba asked, "Can you wait for me? I want to dance with Miss Lurleen too." Dwayne and Milton and their wicked daddy hooted and hollered. "Why, you're sorrier than a steer in a stockyard," said Dwayne. "Can you imagine Miss Lurleen dancing with the likes of you?" said Milton. "Miss Lurleen wouldn't even wipe the dirt clods off her boots with that raggedy shirt of yours. And you smell more like the cattle than the cattle do." Bubba didn't like that, I'm sure. They were not being nice. Even that horse is laughing. Did you see that horse laughing?
Yeah.
Look at that.
With crooked teeth.
He's probably one of those lazy horses too. Bubba took a look at himself and, well, it was true. He didn't have a decent shirt to wear. His boots were downright disgraceful, and he did smell a bit rough. Milton and Dwayne were right. Miss Lurleen wouldn't dance with the likes of him. Bubba just hung his head. He felt lower than a rattlesnake in a gully. Milton and Dwayne and their daddy went off to the ball. Bubba mounted his horse and headed to the pasture to check on the herd. The sky was getting darker than a black bull at midnight. It looked like a Texas thunderstorm was a brewing.
Oh,
See that big cloud?
Yeah, there's something in it.
Yeah, it kind of looks like there's something in it, doesn't it?
The horse has to go inside too.
Well, Bubba had just arrived at the cow pasture when a bolt of lightning struck, knocking him off of his horse. Bubba was stunned for a moment, but when he picked himself up, he heard a voice. "Go to the ball, Bubba," said the voice. Bubba looked around and there was no one around except for him and the cows.
Oh, that's the horse.
Yeah, and there, yeah, his horse.
Looking surprised.
Now Bubba figured that he had bonked the bejeebers out of his bean because the voice was coming from a cow. She chewed on her cud for a moment and then she said, "I'm your fairy god cow, and I can help you go to the ball." Bubba sat up, rubbing his head. I'd like to go to the ball, Miss God Cow, but shoot, I don't have a thing to wear." The fairy god cow swished her tail, and Bubba's raggedy clothes changed into the handsomest cowboy does he had ever laid eyes on. His jeans were crisp, his boots were shiny, his shirt was dazzling, and his Stetson hat was whiter than a new salt lick. "Why, I look downright pretty," said Bubba. Look at him. He looks a lot different, doesn't he?
He looked different when he was before.
Yes,
He
yes.
looks like yes. He looks funny.
She swished that tail and did it. The fairy god cow swished her tail again, and the nearby steer, a steer's a cow, and the nearby steer turned into the most beautiful white stallion, that's a horse, Bubba had ever seen. "Now, you go on off to the ball, Bubba, and have a good time dancing with Miss Lurleen. But you'd best be home by midnight, 'cause that's when the magic runs out." "Yahoo!" shouted Bubba as he jumped on the white horse and galloped off to the ball. He's excited now, isn't he? He doesn't look exhausted anymore.
He looks like a starfish when he's going to the ball. Then he
Yes.
turned into a horse.
And yeah, it did. It turned in with a swish of that fairy god cow's tail. Well, when Bubba arrived, the hoedown was in full swing. But every time Miss Lurleen danced, or every time she finished a dance, she yawned. "There goes another $10 Stetson on a 5-cent head," she complained. "Where are all the real cowboys?" she said. By the time it was Bubba's turn to dance with Miss Lurleen, it was almost midnight. Soon as she saw Bubba, Miss Lurleen's eyes lit up. "Why, you're cute as a cow's ear," she said. Bubba blushed, then took Miss Lurleen in his arms, and they started dancing. Well, Dwayne and Milton turned purple with jealousy. "Who's that guy?" said Dwayne. "I don't recollect seeing him before, but he looks a mite familiar," said Milton. "Do something," said their wicked stepdaddy. "That cowboy is winning Miss Lurleen's heart." Well, they didn't even recognize Bubba, did they?
Dog. No, he just turned into a dog or dancing.
Yeah, I see that. Well, as it turned out, Milton and Dwayne didn't have to do a thing because Bubba and Miss Lurleen were in the middle of do-si-doing when the clock struck midnight. Suddenly, Bubba's fine duds turned into dirty rags that he usually wore around the ranch. He looked sorry and he smelled worse. "What's that awful smell?" asked Milton. "Why, it's Bubba!" shouted Dwayne. Bubba turned 14 shades of red, apologized to Miss Lurleen, and ran out of the room. "Wait!" she yelled, chasing after him.
Oh, he's dirty. He's
dirty.
like,
He went back to the way he was. But Bubba didn't wait. He jumped onto his cow. Remember, it was a horse. Now it turned back into a cow. Jumped onto his cow and lumbered off into the night. In the ruckus, he lost one of his dirty cowboy boots. Miss Lurleen clasped it into her arms. "This is the boot of a real cowboy and the man I want to marry, and I aim to find him." Miss Lurleen went back inside, and though she asked everybody in the ball, nobody knew who the mysterious cowboy was. Nobody except for Dwayne and Milton and their wicked stepdaddy, but they weren't talking. They weren't going to tell her.
He's like Bruno because
You see that?
when he was dancing, his food fell out.
Yeah. The next day, Miss Lurleen went to the ranch, or from ranch to ranch, looking for the cowboy who owned the boot. When she came to Dwayne and Milton's ranch, both brothers tried the boot on, but it didn't fit. Miss Lurleen had just climbed onto her horse to leave when Bubba rode up. He was dirty and sweaty, and he was smelly from working with the cows. And he was only wearing one boot. Did y'all see that?
Yeah.
See him riding up and he's only wearing one boot?
Yeah. Yeah. And
Miss Lurleen jumped off of her horse, ran over to Bubba. "Try this on," she cried. Bubba put the dirty boot on, or pulled it right on. "Much obliged, ma'am," he said. "It fits perfect." "You're my prince in cowboy boots," shouted Miss Lurleen. "I'd recognize that smell anywhere. Marry me, cowboy, and help me work my ranch." Dwayne and Milton and their wicked stepdaddy threw chicken fits. They're not happy, are they? Yeah.
He's only a little boy. That is weird.
But Bubba just smiled, and he and Miss Lurleen rode off into the sunset. They lived happily ever after, roping and cowpoking and getting them doggies along. The end. Well, what'd you think about that? Was it kind of like Cinderella?
Yes. A lot to me.
A lot, right? It had a lot of things. What did you like about it?